Hello, hello there, Outliers. Niiamah Ashong here, and thank you so much for joining us on the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity and help them leverage their difference to make a whole world of difference. Today, I am joined by one of those outliers, Tony Crane. Tony, it's an absolute pleasure to be in space with you here today. I'm excited to get Outliers to get to know you, to know like your journey, your story, and honestly, like how you keep creating success for yourself in a way that is different than what others might actually think it goes about. So just, I'm glad we're going to spend time together. Glad to have you.
Niiamah, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
It's a good time. Let's give people a chance to get to know you here, and I've been enjoying getting to know you myself. And if you're good with it, I'd like to share a bit of like who you've been to me right now.
Sure.
Just give a bit of that reflection. Uh, so Tony, one of the things that I get about you, that I appreciate about you, well, one thing is just the surface level here, which is I love your background. I love like coming into your space and the space that you actively curate. Part of the reason, like I think about that as someone who chooses to create their own design in life and bring that out to life. In our conversations, you've brought a level of um, there's a steadiness to you that is really like really appreciated. It's like there's ambition, but there's also like this complete, I guess it's maybe the word is ease, that comes along with it, but it's grounded ease. I think that's why I'm using the word steadiness. There's a grounded ease in the sense of we can create a lot. We can go wherever we need to go in the conversation, but no matter where we are, we're still grounded, we're still centered, we're still like, and it can be done in an easeful way. Hard things can be done in an easeful way. So I'm excited here to be in space with you today. I'm excited to learn more about you and to experience you even more fully from here. Right now, I've shared my reflection of my experience with you. Would you mind just sharing a bit about you personally and professionally for everyone?
Yeah, of course. First, I appreciate the invitation to Outliers Edge. It's an honor to be here. So thank you for that. Um, my name is Anthony Crane. I'm from moneygodfather.com. I was raised in Mexico and very, very humble beginnings. And one of the things that I had to decide early on at the tender age of 19 was if I wanted to remain in my current situation, which was poor, for lack of a better word, or was I willing to do something that nobody else in my family had done? And that was join the military. It was one of those things that I was blessed, I suppose, to have been born in Houston, Texas, so the Lone Star State, and that gave me the opportunity to have a choice. And most times when we find that we're stressed out or angry about something, I've narrowed it down to not having a choice. It's when we feel trapped that we really get upset. When we have choices, normally we are better with rolling with the punches. So I had a decision to make. It was either follow my family's footsteps wherever that would take me, or the world is your oyster, go get it. But it was very scary at the time, very, very scary, because again, I didn't have a mentor to teach me anything or to, I don't know, warn me about what to expect. And it was a huge leap. Also, not to mention the culture shock because of the language barrier, and just people in general. But I always wanted to go to Japan too. That was one of the things growing up. Like, I know a lot of people probably grew up watching anime, and I was like, man, I gotta check out Japan, just to see firsthand if it's really cool or if it sucks. And that's what helped me decide to join the branch of the U.S. Navy, because they had a base in Japan. So uh, just so you know, Japan is great. It's fantastic. People are wonderful over there. They will spoil you with their politeness to no end. Um, I don't know how it is now, but when I was around at the turn of the century, my God, that was a long time ago. Um,
I got this up, right?
geez,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
I saw a Reddit post not too long ago that, oh my God, that was 3 years ago, that said there was a person that was born in the year 2000 and he's allowed to drink today.
Yeah,
Just let that sink in for a minute.
yeah.
Oh my God, it's been over 20 years. Jesus.
Well, I like and the way like I like to look at this too now. It's like we're gonna get to 2045. It's happening. Like time will happen here, right? So the things that we're talking about now, there's going to be 20 years later, and this is 20 years and some change. So there's going to be a kid born today who by the time this like 20 this day 2025 happens, like that would happen again. And we're going to have all this comes here. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about where you've been and what brought you here. And then like most of the conversation, I love to be looking and saying like, hey, in the next 20 years, like where are you headed? Right. But
Oh
let's
my.
let's let's stay with where you are right now for now.
Okay.
Yeah, like yeah, keep going.
Oh,
So you
so
made you
yeah,
made
I
a
mean,
choice to join the Navy. Like Japan was on the list and you were able to get there. How did that shape like take us a bit forward from there? So how did that shape some of like where you ended up afterwards?
well, they in the Navy, you have the choice to pick your next duty station. I don't know how that is with other services exactly. And what I chose to do next was the second hardest duty there is, which was I became a headhunter for the Navy. Well, really, we call it recruiting duty, but headhunter sounds cooler, you know what I mean? So I did recruiting. In fact, it was in California where you're at right now. So that was my introduction to uh, what used to be the third greatest economy on the planet, the state of California. And as a recruiter, I learned sales and marketing, and that's where a lot of active listening came into play. Public speaking, and that's a hard one. That's a really hard one. But it's public speaking is probably one of the most useful skills that you could ever have under your belt. I always tell people that if they're not comfortable with it, like nobody's comfortable with it. It's innate. It's something within us, that tells us, no, you don't want to pull attention to yourself because if the pack disagrees with you, you'll be out. You'll be a pariah. You'll be pushed out of society.
It's
Um,
interesting because that's like one of the things that the element of the pack disagrees with you. It's one of the bigger things that shows up here with us as outliers, right? Because we're a
mhm.
group of people who are creating something out of nothing, something that hasn't been done before, something that like, we're pioneers and mavericks, right? And so like that component, I often hear people talk about public speaking as like people fear public speaking worse than death. And someone said to me, "I was like, no, they just think that they'll die if they and it's not like they'll physically die, but their livelihood, exact that ousted their livelihood, their status, all those other things will die, And I
Yep.
I love bringing in public speaking because I think that while that one's like uh, it's talked about as something that people are afraid of, I think that it translates really well with the types of challenges that we as outliers face, where it's like, what if we introduce this new product? Well, if I go off and I do my own business, what if I do go to the military, I do a decision unlike everything else that everyone else around me has either done or shown me can be done? What happens then? So keep going, but there's some elements of here that that just really like align up here. So you
Yeah.
learn, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'll keep going until you tell me to stop, or if you have a question or something
Yeah,
like
I do have some questions for you. Like the thing that like I'm curious here. Let's fast forward a bit. All right. So you learn sales, marketing, active listening, public speaking from the recruiting element there. Where did your career go after that? Just try and let's actually do me a favor. Why don't you take us to where you are now? And then if we need to bridge in anything in between, we will.
Right.
But like we'll start there, and then we'll take the conversation where it needs to go from there.
Yeah. All right. Well, after that, I became a linguist for the Navy, and that's what sent me over here to the wonderful state of Georgia, the Peach State. And Georgia's been great to me. One of the things that I did while I was in California was uh, I started thinking about my future, and it was more in the means of what am I going to do about wealth, about retirement. So I bought my very first house in California, and this was the year 2006. Now I'll let you think about what point in time we were in 2006, especially in California. Well, 2 years later, the market collapsed. And the real estate market took a nosedive that resonated throughout the world. And one of the movies that I really like is The Big Short. Have you seen that? It has
Yep.
like an all-star cast, and they explain it beautifully on what happened, why it happened. And there's a really cool scene with Margot Robbie explaining, some of the vehicles there. So, I mean, if nothing else, watch it because Margot Robbie's awesome. So
I just
lessons
finished
learned.
watching
I
Barbie
lost a house.
the other day, so
Say again?
I just finished watching Barbie the other day, so she's on my mind. So what happened with that? What happened with the house for you?
Man, I had to short sell it.
Yeah,
It was horrible. It was on I don't want to go into too many details because
yeah,
it
yeah,
might be
yeah.
boring to some of your listeners. But it was an adjustable rate mortgage on
Yep.
ARM,
Mhm.
and they were all interest only, so super low payments. But in 2 years, they would mature and they would become regular mortgages.
Yep.
So 2006 to 2008, I was one of thousands that had this very easy to pay loan that matured in 2008. And then all of a sudden, your monthly payments tripled. And like, where we go from here, So, I mean, the realtor told me I could refinance and I'll be okay. Real estate will go to the moon, right? It'll never stop appraising. Well, it stopped. It stopped all right. It stopped hard. So we all learned a very, very, very valuable lesson.
What was the lesson that you specifically learned?
Don't trust the media. Don't go with the pack. Don't go with. Let's put it this way: if you want to be an investor, and this is just my personal opinion, my experience, it's kind of like being an entrepreneur where you are an outlier. When everybody tells you that real estate is booming and you should go buy real estate right now, you should not. You should not buy real estate at that time because everybody's buying it. The market is in a frenzy. When people are afraid and they shy away and they're like, man, don't buy real estate. Real estate sucks. That's the time to come into the market.
So this is actually really interesting because that you're describing my situation right now. So we ended up buying a house here in California as well, and I won't forget the conversation that took place. And I think that like as outliers here, like we have these moments, right? We have these moments where we see the masses, the average, the most people are going in one direction, and something in our mind goes off and says, "But isn't the truth over there?" Or like hey, if we just took a breath here, my experience or something that's telling me it's something different. And the question becomes, do we trust that or not? Right. I'm using this story right now of getting in the house to as one of the more recent examples of that for me. But yeah, I remember I went out to there's a lot of breweries here. So we went out, we were hanging out at a brewery, had my kids with us here, and we were just a bunch of parents just meeting up. And we were rented and our friends all owned. And I was like, we want to come and own as well. And but the market is like really bad right now. The interest rates are awful. And I'll never forget someone sent me a text afterwards. It's like, yeah, definitely don't do it. Look, there's all these articles about this, the worst time in history to go do it. And just one of my friends, just like, and she has like a groundedness to her, what is it? I don't know how to describe it, but I get she gets where I've been in life,
Oh,
and
okay.
she's like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm just saying that when everyone else is zigging, it's probably time to zag. And so this might be a great time to go in and put an offer on a house that like you really want that would work for you at a lower things because so on and so on and so forth. It's what got us in the game.
Mm,
We ended up making a decision afterwards, but uh I remember going going into that conversation thinking it's not our time. We'll just wait and then come in and leaving there and saying, at the very least, we should be in this game and see. And it ended up being that because of that decision, within a couple months, we ended up finding a place that was right for us. And now it's our place.
good for
So
you,
when you say
man.
that, it's like it feels exactly right. But it's like these reminders out here. And I think it also comes down to that level of just like trust in self. I'm going to make it a little bit more macro from just that period in time to like the ongoing decisions of like, should we launch this? Should we like go down this path? Am I making the right choice in, I'll say to people, it's like, look, it's like, I can't tell if I'm a genius or if I've gone off the wall. And I cannot tell. It's one or the other.
The
You're
line is pretty
just
blurry, bro.
yeah, right. So how have you navigated that with that? You mentioned investing, like that's what you do now, correct?
Yes. Well, first off, I heard that your daughter just turned 1.
Yes, yes,
All
indeed.
right.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you very much. I'm recognizing how much like more brain space I have, and like there's an element of like the energy that was involved there. But now that she's one, I'm like, okay, I think we have our routines in place. This is good. This is good. I know it's not going to last for too long because everything changes with kids.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like, I have become more stable, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It
Yeah.
changes a person.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
to answer your question, yeah, it's that is what I did in I think it was 2014 is when I opened my company, Anthony Crane Investors Group Inc., and started buying houses and started managing houses. And it was it's been interesting to say the least. What you mentioned earlier, you have it spot on. I think what it is that entrepreneurial spirit where we just can't sit still. I mean, chances are that you probably, if didn't hate, strongly disliked having a desk job or, just a regular 9 to 5. And you're like, man, there's gotta be something more than this.
Ooh. You mind if I step in on that?
No, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because my actual experience, I don't think I've actually no one's brought it up. The my actual experience of this here, the reason that I'm one of the reasons I'm with you right now is that I met a lady. I met my partner, my wife, and she was a baller and like just like in life, and she had lived in like 4 different countries, and I knew that from the first date that we had. And so when I got married to her, well, actually even before getting married, but like she's like, I just so you know, 6 months into us dating, she's like, hey, this is going well and all, but there's a job opportunity coming up in Brazil and I'm gonna get it and I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna get it. So, and I was like, cool. I'm a laid back guy. So I'm like, let me just enjoy what's happening. And then when you get it, we'll see where our relationship is. Uh, Things changed. She actually ended up getting in Delaware instead of Delaware, U.S. instead of Brazil. So very different. She did get a spot somewhere else. Um, but it was like at that time where we started looking into what would it be like for us to work abroad, and then we started to realize that wait, like I was at a company that had positions abroad, but and so was she, but we weren't guaranteed that we would get a position abroad. We weren't guaranteed that we would both get a position abroad, and we weren't guaranteed that we would both get a position abroad in the same country, let alone city, for it to actually work, like be worth it. And that's what actually got me to the place of like looking into how can I be location independent, and
Oh man.
that's what started me down that path because I was like, this lady's not going to stay in one place. I'm glad I did it because a few years later, I guess 3, 4 years later, she's like, it's time for us to leave the U.S. and we went to live in Singapore for 4 years. But
Oh,
that's
beautiful, man.
yeah.
I'm very envious of you right now.
Why is that?
Singapore is like probably the economically the greatest country to be a citizen of. Not just because of their diversity and the people and the way that they conduct their laws and legislators, but they don't just let anybody in. And but once you get in, man, you get like the 5-star treatment. It's really hard to get into Singapore. So I hope you establish a little bit of roots, at least open a bank account, maybe bought a little property or two. But yeah, I'm very envious. Singapore is one of those things that I'd be willing to move to Malaysia just for the chance of someday being able to get into Singapore.
Yeah, I wish I had talked to you back then because like you talked earlier about making a decision and not having like mentors or anything like there's no path, right?
Yeah.
So we had some good things going on in Singapore. What I don't want you to know is this, and so I'll say this because it actually has shaped a lot for me, right? Where it comes in, where um, there were a couple different types of visas to get, and my wife, I actually came with my wife through her organization. So what and like she had what was called an employment pass while she was there, and I had what was called a dependent pass, right? Because I was coming in as her spouse. The thing I don't want you to know about that, like titles of passes aren't that big of a deal, but what ended up happening was that with that I wasn't able to like get a bank account in my own name. I wasn't able to I
Mm.
sign off. There was so much that was taking place where I couldn't do it. And growing up, like it was an amazing experience because I got amazing experience now because of all the lessons I had. It was not amazing in the moment. Uh, there was lessons in humility, lessons in just like appreciating what it's like to be a part of a country where you can just like make decisions, things like starting up a business, starting out like I didn't have to think about it while here, and I don't think it's given me coming back. It's given me a lot of opportunities to look at what I thought were challenges beforehand that I realized I'm like, even though it might be a challenge, I'm still 348 steps further than like the challenges I had to go through when I was in Singapore to do the same thing, you know?
Mm.
And the real part that I don't want you to know, because if I'm going here, we might as well just go, uh, is what I didn't realize was that during the time I was there, I was actually becoming a dependent. I was actually starting to depend more and more on my wife and like lose the independence. It's something different
Mm.
to like go and pay for something and it doesn't have your name on it. I'm
Oh
like,
man, yeah, that had to
yeah,
be weird, huh?
it's a different. I was fine with it until I became too fine with it because it became my way of life. Either I was going to always feel uncomfortable about it, or I was going to find a level to get comfort. The interesting part was that it didn't happen until after we left, and we were there about 2.5 years before COVID, and a year and a half with COVID. And the interesting thing for me was I'm like, oh, I did it wrong. You see, I came in with the dependence pass, and I didn't come in with the mentality of saying I'm going to create something different. I'm going to create something so that I get a different pass. I
Hmm.
I am not going to like. I stayed in the system. I pulled back a lot and it
Yep.
goes back to this element of like one of the biggest things for me is I realized I'm like, oh, if I'm gonna like, I can't help but be Niiamah, but when I'm not being me, like things flow down. It's actually one of my biggest strengths is to show up as me in wherever I go because I was afraid of being the unaware American living in Singapore that like got invited but was then kicked out because some things like that. And so I diminished myself way too much.
Because
way
you're
too.
chewing bubble gum in the sidewalk.
Yeah, like like not looking that, not looking like that. So it's interesting that yeah, thank you. I haven't really shared that much about like that experience in Singapore. People know about Singapore, but they don't know yes, it changes you. It helps you grow living abroad and all that. But like the growth I had was like, oh, I did that whole thing wrong, you know?
You can't really say that because you did the best you could with what you had. I mean, we can play that woulda, coulda all day. You know how much an ounce of gold was in 99?
Mm,
It's probably like 380 bucks. If I'd known that, I probably would have spent like a paycheck, like every 2 weeks that I get paid, and just bought gold and put it away. I
mm.
mean, I was making, to me, I was bank, I
Yeah,
mean, you're getting overseas pay and you're getting hazard duty pay and all this other pay. I didn't know what to do with it.
yeah.
But nobody told me about investing in gold.
Mm,
Today, an ounce is about $2,080.
mm,
So even if it was just a little bit, I would have loved to have known to buy some gold. Um, but and the same token, talking about Singapore, we did go to Singapore and we pulled in there for like 2 days. And the only experience they have of it was walking to Starbucks.
mm.
And I bought a coffee mug from Starbucks. And it was beautiful to see the the flower beds in the middle of the streets. The streets, the gutters, everything's super clean. And we were warned, like don't break the law. And this is the etiquette. Don't chew bubble gum and walk. That's illegal. If you smoke, you stop as designated smoking area until you finish your cigarette and put it out.
Yep.
If you flick it and you get caught, we're not gonna come rescue you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they weren't kidding. They weren't playing around. Later on, when that piece of news came out where an American,
Yep.
got caught spray painting a wall in English,
Mhm.
genius.
Mhm.
Yeah, he ended up getting caught and he got caned in public, and people were crying inhumane and authority abuse, and he was crying to the United States to come rescue him. They're like, no, you broke the law. So Japan is another country that's really hard to get into. But if you can, it's great. I didn't know that. I actually had a bank account that I had to use to pay my rent. And me being young and dumb, as soon as I was done, I bailed. I closed that account and just left.
Yeah.
So we can't really say, woulda, could have. What I could say is I don't regret buying that first property in California that I had to short sale on. I didn't foreclose it, I short sold, which is just like a step below.
Yeah.
Um, because it taught me a lot of things. One of the things was I didn't die.
Yeah.
I made a very grave mistake because I was listening to people that didn't know what they were talking about, and everything was okay. So I like telling people that uh, the greatest superpower that an entrepreneur has is no fear, is we're not afraid of failing. Because once you fail a couple of times and you get back up and then you go at it again, if you didn't fail those times, you wouldn't have taken advantage of the opportunities presented to you later on when they come up. And in the meantime, I did a little project of love, which is your Money Godfather podcast. And it's still out, it's still around. I had to put that on hold because of other things that are happening right now. But in that podcast, I usually lay out as much as I can on the lessons that I've learned, and if I was talking to the future generation, what I would like for them to know, or if I was talking to myself in the past, what would I like to know to help me navigate through these treacherous waters that is life.
Mm,
And one of the episodes was exactly that. I named it Spectators, Speculators, and Commentators.
mm,
So I don't want to really butcher it, but
Well, and
essentially,
they can people can go and like go to the podcast and listen because it still exists, right? So they can go out there and take a
yeah,
listen to it deeply in there, right?
yeah, they can go check it out.
So
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 it's
yeah,
there.
I'm gonna recommend Outliers that you take some time like to go play it. If you had to go say in like a sentence one of the core components of that, why don't you let us know and then we'll start wrapping up for today.
Yeah. Well, the podcast is about uh, finding your purpose and then building a plan about getting there, getting to your purpose, and having fun while you're doing it. So spectators, commentators, and speculators were about all those people around us that tell us, no, you shouldn't do that because the media is saying this, or I read about it in a book, or my cousin, he did it and he lost his house, so don't do it because it's terrible. Don't invest in the stock market, don't buy this, don't buy that. And they do it out of love, because they want to protect us. But really, you shouldn't listen to them because they don't know what they're talking about. What you should do is find a mentor, somebody that has done it, didn't read about it, didn't talk about it, has done it, and ask him, what is it going to take for you to teach me what you know? And if he tells you you shouldn't buy that 20 apartment complex as your first property, you should listen to him or her, you know. So essentially, it's about the life lessons and all wrapped up in a nice little bow and just
Nice,
presented to
nice.
the audience.
So let's do this then. Teddy. We're about to wrap up for today, and I'm actually gonna do something that I haven't done before, and I'm realizing as we're talking, I'm like, I'm gonna probably do this more often. Um, because the game of experimenting, like part of why I do what I do right now, especially with these conversations, is like I'm in the process of discovering my uh what this will actually be, right? By discovering what the my voice is with this. I've done hundreds of podcast episodes. I keep going back and forth. And I think there's a part of me that's been searching for something. So in this conversation, something showed up. And I'm like, I think I'd like to do this going forward. We're in the world of different season of this podcast. And one of the things that I wanted to see with you, and we might actually make this a two-part thing to dive into it further. But I'm curious about the different world that you are creating. So if you had to like put out there, like we've kind of talked now about some of what like your experience and your journey up to this point. We've also heard some of the ways that you see the world. I'm curious about like what you're doing with it now. All right. In what ways are you using that to create your biggest impact in the world right now?
Wow. Talk about a loaded question, man. Geez, let me adjust here for a minute.
If you're not adjusting, I haven't done it right.
Oh, good
Yeah, I,
job.
I love I love being in conversation and all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, it got real. All right, let's go." Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm very very curious about like. Well, let me let you answer. I'm not gonna diffuse it. What are your thoughts on my question?
Um, how to articulate this? One of my mentors taught me that a dream is a dream until you write it down on paper. Then it becomes a goal. So how are you going to do it? So I still have dreams and I have goals. And some of my dreams have to do with fixing, I say fixing, quote unquote, the education system here in the United States. Because I find it extremely unfair that young minds don't get the opportunity to flourish because of, I don't know, because of some laws or bureaucracy, or because they just were dealt a horrible hand in life, their parents divorced, um, or their school district is not really good and they're too young to move out on their own. So there's a lot of really hardworking people out there that I would like to extend a hand. Uh, and there's scholarships for universities and colleges and stuff, but I want to see if I can establish a scholarship for middle school and and above, in which we would have either charter schools or uh, maybe give them grants for private schools in their area. I really don't know. Again, it's a dream. What I do know is there's going to be a lot of red tape. If you ever saw Waiting for Superman, it's a documentary about the American education system and the people that have tried to champion a difference and got stopped in their tracks. So there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of hands involved in the pot and a lot of things that I know that I don't know. So let's see where it takes us. For now, I can focus on helping people grow their dreams or their businesses and the best way that I can. I'm be an open book. I'll share whatever I can with people. And so if you have like a podcast or a YouTube channel or a blog, or you're an affiliate marketer, there's a lot of things that I can share with you about sales, marketing, public speaking, communication, storytelling. Today's day and age is attention is the most valuable currency. And one of the misconceptions that people have about entrepreneurs or business owners or outliers in general. Excuse me, can you cut that out? Yeah, all right, let's continue. No, I'm kidding, I'm not gonna let you do that. Man, I lost my train of thought. A misconception that they have about entrepreneurs. I'm gonna have to come back to that point.
All right. That's good. And yeah, I keep everything in conversations here because I actually the reason I do this though is because I find it's not that I'm like I want to waste people's time or I don't want to give people like the best edit possible. I'm like in real life, like real life happens, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of us get to a place where we get afraid of like what would happen if I end up here and I have to like cough something out or I lose my train of thought. It's like you just get back on, and there's things that I can say about that, but it's something different when someone gets a chance to actually experience it and realize that like while as a listener they didn't like their ears didn't just explode or whatever it is. It's like if the quality is good, if the conversation is there, if they're getting what they're there for, like it doesn't, like none of those other things matter. And so I like to keep all these things in here because I have found that when I learn the most, it is because I have actually put myself in I have put myself in a position where like something vulnerability needs to exist, essentially. Um and I remember paying into masterminds and groups, and the things that stuck with me the most, the biggest ahas, were watching the leaders deal with confrontation when people in the group were pushing back, you know. And
Nice.
like, and like I'm like, you can hear someone say something, but until you're in that moment and you're like, oh, this is getting really awkward. I can't believe they said it. I mean, I'm feeling it, but I can't believe it was said. And then you watch how someone can like be not diffuse, but to be with them and lead both of them out to a better solution. That's the stuff that's real. So I keep everything. I keep everything, and it's not because I am not conscious or I don't care about the people who listen. It's because I care too much, and I have realized that like I would only be perpetrating and perpetuating their own fears by cutting out things and making it look super polished, because that's, as outliers, a lot of times we are making it up and we don't have the benefit of having the polished version right off the bat. And so if we can learn how to be able to walk around with, I don't know, toilet paper on the bottom of our shoe and still get the investment or still get the client or whatever it is, like that's the stuff that's gonna, because we're not gonna even know we don't know. It's just it's the nature of choosing to be a pioneer or living a maverick kind of lifestyle and so on and so forth.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, I like it's to me, I'm like, how we are is the most thing. Who we are being is it's the hardest thing to be able to let people really capture and embody. So I appreciate it. I share it as it is. It is very intentional. It's just, but it's harder. You just never know when magic is going to happen, and you never. And the other thing for me is that I've learned a long time ago that it is not my job to let people know what outsides they should get. I'll give people opportunities to share outsides, but people get what they get based on where they are in life
Mm.
and based on the amount that they are willing to commit to their own transformation. I am totally great with someone listening to this and saying, when I do my podcast, I'm not going to do anything like this. I'm like, I'm glad I can help you, by at least eliminating one of the infinite possibilities that are available for you. Go do that. You know, I don't, it does not matter to me in that regard. What matters to me is that you're taking the time to create your different world. Sorry, I don't know why I'm apologizing, but this is it's the kind of space that I create. It's the kind of thing. It's like it is the sandbox. This is the transformation. This is being like the outlier life, in whatever way, shape, or form. Before we wrap up for today, before we close for today, is there anything you want to add on to that, or anything that comes to you as I share that?
Well, I remembered that one of the things that we learned in sales was that the sale doesn't begin until you get your first no. So I welcome adversity and pushback. And you're right, we're all human, and I'm not pretending to be anybody else. That's what I was joking. If you listen to my podcast, I'm clowning half of the time, but never unprofessional. Is full of value, is jam-packed with lessons, but I'm a person.
Yeah. So let's do this there. Like we're at time. So why don't we let people know how they can follow you and find the podcast and anything else like there if they want to stay in your world or go deeper in your world with you, Anthony.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, the podcast is called Your Money Godfather,
Mhm.
and my website is moneygodfather.com.
Thanks.
So any updates or any new developments that may come, I'm going to put it on a video right there on the front page before the fold. So that's the one that will be changing. I also plan on having a YouTube channel in which we could have conversations like these whenever I do launch my mentorship program, which is going to be April 19th.
Just
And
just put a year on this year because Niiamah doesn't play. I'm talking about the third party here, but like you might be listening to this in like 2027, and it's like no, this was happening in 2024. So April
yes.
19th of 2024. By the time you listen to this, it's likely already out. So like
Mhm.
go check it out is it going to be at moneygodfather.com?
Yeah, that's where it'll start.
Okay.
And just follow the breadcrumbs from there. If
Okay.
anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can just fill out the contact us and the contact us page, or send me an email, Anthony at moneygodfather.com.
Awesome. 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 And then the last thing here, Anthony, is like we were talking about like the things that you talk about like you can't go back, you can't look at things that you've done like wrong or like everything continues to build upon itself. There are lessons that you know now. There are things that you know to be true. There are mindsets. There are things that are true for you right now. Um, my question is, what's one of those things that you know to be true for you right now that you want to remind yourself in maybe 15 years when so much else is changing that you're like, hey, don't forget this. This right here, make sure you keep it with you. What's a message? I call it the time capsule question, but what's a message you would leave in the time capsule for yourself for 15 years, just be like reminded about when you may need it?
That would be an evergreen piece of advice, I would say. And how do I make it a great one? Is not just this too shall pass, but whether you're doing well or you aren't, enjoy the ride. memorize the experience. What are you feeling? Even if it's anger, if it's fear, if you're cold, or if you're excited, memorize it, because you only start once. You know, the beginning of your career is only going to happen one time. And if you try to rush through it, you're going to miss out on a lot of experiences because you're just looking forward to the next step and the next step. So even the bad parts, be thankful for the problems that you have. Like not having a tenant, like my toilet broke, like I have taxes to pay. Some people don't. They don't have a house, they don't have a toilet to break, they don't have to pay taxes because they don't make any money. So count your blessings and be grateful for your problems.
Well, I appreciate you so much, Anthony. Like, it's been a great conversation here. We'll keep things flowing from here, and we'll take it from there, right?
Yes, sir. Niiamah, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.